For today's scripture and scrapping, we're going to do the verse, Psalm 91:4. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. I really like that feeling of safety, knowing that God is covering us. And so I wanted to do a layout to go with that. And so we have a lot of different birds. And so I'll show you a few different versions. This is a sketch. It was in the June virtual crop. And you punch the tops of each of these. And we're going to use bird punches to do that. If you do not have these particular birds that I'm showing, you could use bird stickers like a border or a laser border, or if you have a punch that punches out a chain, you could add that to the top of the squares. So you can make it work with what you have, and I look forward to seeing everyone's different version. But let me show you the version I did with the new penguin punch, and you can see the penguins are punched at the top. And this is the way that the sketch was laid out. And then you have room at the bottom as well for photos going horizontally. So you have some smaller photos here, some photos down here, and you can make those whatever size you want. The sketch actually had like 4x4, but these are a little bit bigger. So I will make this a sketch very similar to this, but I'll use the chickens because as you know, we have chickens, so I've been wanting to use that chicken coop to do that. But for today, and because of my friend Debbie Lowe, who has said, well, it's November, why don't we do something with turkeys? I thought, well, you are right. So we're going to make a variation of this page and make it be with a turkey. I'm going to make a very specific turkey. This is a turkey my granddaughter saw at a birthday party and just fell in love with. It's a bourbon red turkey tom, and she thought it was so beautiful. So I'm going to be making one to match mostly this one. It won't be exact, but kind of the colors. But yours can be any colors and any combinations you want. So let me show you what we're going to do. Some people said, how are you going to do the punching? I'm using let's see if you can see that, the Rainbow Ripple border punch. And I have punched the top of a 6x12 sheet of paper. You can see I've already punched that. This is one of the border punches that you need to be careful and line up the little triangles and just take your time on it. It has a lot of interesting little pieces that fall out that could be used as eyeballs or even part of the turkey if you wanted to save those punched pieces. I'm looking at you, Anne Elizabeth. Okay. So once you have the punched piece, then you're going to cut it into 3 pieces. Now I've cut one. You're going to do this with 2 sheets of the same thing. With 2 sheets of 6x12, you're going to punch one side, the long 12-inch side, and then you're going to cut it in 3 3/4 inch pieces. So you end up with 3 of those. And I've also added a 3.5 by 4 1/4 mat just for my pictures to be on later. But I'm going to show you how I cut these. This particular pattern has a little bit, it doesn't start and end at the beginning of these nice rounded edges. So what I'm going to do, because I wanted it to look very smooth, is I'm going to cut off 1/8 of an inch at this end right here that has just a little bit of overhang right there. And that pretty much gets it to the beginning of a rounded piece, and then I can turn it over, and I'm going to cut 3 3/4, and that should cut in between these curved edges. And so that gives you that nice scallop at the edge. So there's one. The sketch says 3 1/2, and I like 3 3/4 just a little bit better to get a bigger photo or put the mat on and then put the same size photo. It also seems to work out better for your design, at least for this one. The penguins, I had to do a little bit of trimming here and there, but it worked out okay. So I've got my 3 pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and add those mats that I cut out. And like I said, these are 3 1/2 by 4 1/4. And you can see that has that color of the turkey that I'm after, the brown and the cream colored. So these are going to be like the tallest feathers in the back, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that, because I know that sounds crazy, but hopefully at the end it'll look like a turkey to you. Okay, so we've got these cut, and I'm going to lay these to the side because we need something to position them with. So I've cut a circle with the jumbo custom cutting system pattern, and I use the red blade on the outside, so that to make this big jumbo circle. If you don't have that, this is a, let's see if I see what the measurements are. I'll find out the measurements, but well, I can do it. That would be the best way. It is about 11 inches. 11 1/4. So if you had a plate or something, if you didn't have that jumbo. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut one edge off at 3 inches here. I'm going to just take a piece, line up the edge there, and cut 3 inches off. So I have a flat edge. You can kind of see this is like the back of the feathers, where the feathers would be on a turkey maybe. You're not going to see this piece of paper, so I just use the insert sheet to do this, because you're going to cover this all up. But you do need something to stick your feathers onto. Now I'm going to also use my ruler, and I'm going to measure 2 1/2 inches from each side on this flat edge and make myself a little mark. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and make one at 5 as well, just to be on the safe side. That's the center of this piece. If I can get it lined up. That's going to be where the middle of the body is. But I'm going to start with these pieces that we cut, and I'm going to use regular tape for this, because we are going to have to cut this, and I want it to stay, but I'm not going to press it down really hard until I'm ready to know I have everything in place. The first one I can put down exactly. I have that 2 1/2 inch mark. I'm going to just put the edge of it right there at that 2 1/2 inch mark and line it up at the bottom. And I'm going to do one on the other side as well, but I'm not going to stick this one down as hard because I want these to kind of overlap like a fan, and this last one, well, I will pull the corner out. I'll show you when I get there. But we've got this, and then I'm going to add these others around the side, like this, so that you don't see that circle anymore. But you're going to have about 2 1/2 inches sticking above the circle, and you'll kind of have to move it around just a little bit to make sure you've got everything in place where you want it. But I think that's about right. And I'm going to do a quick measure with my ruler with this first one. Make sure it's about 2.5 inches from, yep, there. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this down with regular tape. All right. This one I'm not going to put down quite as firmly, but you can see I'm overlapping the edges of these. I'm going to check to see it's like about 2.5 inches above the thing. That's a little high. You can pull it down, and you can adjust it as you go along. That's about right. Let's get another punch piece over there. You can see it's covering up the edge of this circle. And that's not as high up as I'd like it to go, maybe. Oh, I see. And that is from the punched edge all the way to the circle. So I was actually measuring along there. All right, and then this last one's going to go over here, but I want this side to go over like that. So that's why I didn't push this down all the way. It's actually probably easier to measure this from the back. And I'll show you that in a minute. Let me see if I can go like that. Something that's a little bit off. So I'm going to turn this carefully since I have taped it. You can see the back of here and just kind of look at that and make sure I've got about 2.5 inches from each one of these. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to have a nice as big of amount of this showing as you can. And that way you do have room for some photos on here if you want. If you don't want to, that's okay too. But that's your basic outline of the back feathers. Now we're going to put the turkey body on here. And we're going to make you do that with 2 circles. I've got a bigger circle here that I've made with the small custom cutting system circle and the red outside. And I'm going to have that. And then I've got a head that I've used the medium, also with the red, on the inside. And I actually did a little bit smaller, but this outside layer is the red. Because of the picture, his head on the outside is red, but he's got some blues and greens around his eyes, so I thought that'd be fun. So like I said, I'm doing a particular turkey. Now we want this piece here, we're going to mount it where it's just about a 1/2 inch off of the bottom of the page there, kind of centered in the middle. And I've got foam tape here, and so I'm just going to take that up. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but I wanted to have a little bit hanging off of the edge of this paper. Then I'm going to add the head on top right here. I've also got a foam square here. You notice I don't have any around the edges because of either of these, because I want to be able to stick things underneath. And what I want to be able to stick underneath are some circles. I've punched 8 circles of one color with the 1 3/4 inch punch, and 8 of another color with this 1 3/4 inch punch. If you do not have this punch, this circle here, the medium sized, with the blue blade, it's very, very close, almost the same. And one thing I didn't talk about, the turkey's face. What I used for the pieces were these little individual, I think they're called piece by piece punches, but you could use any punch you have that you think is about the right shape. This is for the wattle, I learned that word. And then I used the little heart out of here for the beak, and I folded it in half, and it has little circles that I used as the eyeballs. I could have put like another little one in here, but looking at the picture, he looked like he had beady little eyes, and I just left it just like that. But you can do, you know, if you have some googly eyes or whatever you want to do. Like I said, one of the pieces that punches out of this rainbow punch is something that looks like this. That would also make a pretty nice little wattle if you didn't have that piece by piece punch. But we're going to take those circles now, and we're going to put them under this one here. And I'm going to start with the green, because I want to have just a little bit of green. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I do not want a green. First, I want to do the white and put it under here. And I'm going to use my repositionable. You're going to do 8 around here, and you'll notice it's kind of off the edge as well. So it's kind of tucked underneath. And since I've got that foam tape, I probably need to tuck it a little bit more. You'll notice some of mine I didn't punch complete circles. It doesn't matter if you're going to tuck it underneath, right? Yes, the real bourbon red is mostly white and brown with a little bit of this blue-green and a little bit of red. But I thought I am going to make him just a little bit more blue-green. So I've got some more of that coming up with the next layer. But I'm going to put these behind his head so you can just see a little bit around the edges here. And it looks like it's blending into the paper right now because we have this white underneath, but we're going to put another layer so you won't see any of that white. So we have one layer of circles, and then we're going to do another layer. And I was torn. I thought, the stripes would be pretty, but then it doesn't show up as much. The real bourbon red does not have this layer of the pretty green in here, but I thought, you know, he needs a little bit of beauty there. And this kind of covers up the edges of our mats as well. Have this other layer coming in. I am using repositionable for these circles. That way I can adjust and move them around a little bit. I'm trying to leave up still a pretty good amount for a photo up here. So with this layout, if you put photos on all these feathers, you would have 6 here, and then there's room once we get finished to add a few more, and I'll show you where that is. So this is the other 8. I usually am pretty worried about the time, and I probably should be, but they've been very lenient lately about not cutting me off at 15 minutes. So I'm hoping that pattern continues. And if I'm over 15, that it will still be okay. So there we go. We have the other layer of circles. I punched a few extra, but you can see I've got 8 and 8. And that kind of gives that layered look. If you wanted to add some inking or something in here, that might give it a little bit more dimension. I use the makeup sponges. I haven't got my new brushes broke in yet where I feel comfortable with them, but just a little bit of extra texture there. So there's our turkey. Now, what do we do with them to get him on a page? He's too big for a regular piece of paper. He's bigger than 12 by 12. If you look at this, see, he would go off the edge. If you wanted to do just a single page, you would just scoot your pieces in closer and not try to put things up here. But I wanted to do this, and I'm going to cut right here, where it's about 5 inches, I think, from the edge here. Yeah, right to those circles there. Cut off just a hair of that circle there, but that's okay. And then I'm going to put this across a couple of pages so that it'll fit. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I cut some pieces from a piece of paper I want to end up using. I started with this red and didn't think this through. And this, I like this border, but I also cut it when I didn't mean to. So I've got some pieces here, and there's another little piece that's stuck right here on my trimmer. Even with my taping, I ended up with a little more than I meant to. So I have to find all my pieces parts there. But let me tape it down just in case we run out of time. So I'm going to put this side of the turkey over here. You could also cut it up over at this side, also 5 inches, and shift it to the other side if you wanted. But I had already cut out a piece of this paper, and I needed to cover this hole. So I'm going to make this my piece, and I'm going to put him about an inch from the bottom. I might even go up a little bit higher. I want the tops of these feathers to go almost up to the top, just to give you a little bit more depth there. Now, if this was a solid piece of paper and you hadn't cut it like I did, you could draw feet if you wanted to. I love this paper that had the wheat on it, so I cut a little piece out here, and I'm still going to have to patch it a little bit to get that piece here. I'll put a sticker or something there, but I'm going to put this wheat on. Oh, there's my little piece that I was looking for. So he's sitting in the wheat right there. And like I said, I'll put something there to cover up my boo-boo. And then the next page, this is where I cut out the wheat, not thinking ahead. So I'm going to line this up at the edge of the page though. Thought I had it, but I was too busy looking at the wheat. Now I can always add just another circle or something there. But then I'm going to add the other side here. And you can see I'm missing a little piece right here. So I'm going to do that part first. You stick this piece back on. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging to match up. Yeah, this is that, evidently that 2.5 inch part that's sticking above the top of the circle. That's why it comes loose, I guess. I didn't think about that. All right, so this, I'm going to coat it down good with some repositionable. And make sure something, right there, goes like that. I believe. Could be wrong. That's going to go underneath like that. And then here's the other part of the rainbow ripple. Like that. All right, so now you can see it all matches up. So now I've got the whole turkey out here. I added, this is in the design, it has across the bottom a 6 by 12 inch piece, or you can put your 6 by 12 at the top and then leave this 6 by 12 showing a different color. But I used a 6 by 12 inch piece here just to kind of cover this area that I messed up, and to give me room for more pictures. This is big enough for 3.5 by 5.5 inch pictures here. Sorry, 3.75 by 5.5. And that way you have some bigger photo area here. But you could do what, you'll have an open area here, you could, or here, where you could add whatever you wanted to. I just like having lots of room for photos. And these will be ones of my granddaughter and her turkey friend. My verse, I wanted to add maybe up here. I have, you know, like I said, an embellishment. That would probably be a great place for it to cover up my boo-boo. And then a little journal box. I'm still deciding, I might put that over here. We shall see. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I'll post a picture when I put everything down, and I look forward to seeing yours and seeing people on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, to work together. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful week.